What's going on, fellas? Welcome back to Del Tells, man. Today we had an exciting day of sports from college football all the way up to UFC. So, right now, we definitely want to talk about UFC because it just recently ended and it was such a great night. There are three fights I really want to focus on in this one. And for this first one, we're going to talk about Bo Nickal and Paul Craig. I wasn't shocked as to the way this fight went because I honestly thought Paul Craig's best chances were if he could get Bo Nickal to the ground. But we have to remember Bo Nickal's a wrestler, and that's his pedigree. That's where he is best. And I'm not exactly shocked that Bo Nickal kept this fight standing. I'm not shocked that Bo Nickal was faster. But we have to keep in mind, Paul Craig has fought light heavyweights, and he's beaten many light heavyweights, great ones at that. Even Jamal Hill, for example. But what's weird about this is you would think his power would translate very easily over to the middleweights. That's not exactly what happened. Paul Craig didn't look bad, but he didn't look good either. You know, he made sure to keep the fight standing because going to the ground, there's once again too many variables. You don't really know what's going to happen. You don't know how Bo Nickal is going to react to what you do. You don't know if his wrestling will gas you out. And if they had gone to the ground and he got gassed out in the wrestling, well, the stand-up would have been much worse because clearly Bo Nickal controlled the entire fight in the stand-up game. So Paul Craig, overall, I would say he came out solid. I would say Bo Nickal was just a lot quicker, and it was evident from the get-go. He was just faster. He was smoother on his feet. He could get in and out of punch situations very quickly. Now, Paul Craig did catch him a couple times sneaking in and trying to get back out. It just wasn't enough to close out the fight. Every now and then, just like I said, Bo Nickal would get some solid hits, and then he would have to get in and out. Paul Craig would catch him on the way out, but it was never nothing threatening to knock out Paul Craig. Paul Craig was definitely in the fight the whole time. I would say in the third round, later on in the third round, was definitely probably the biggest difference maker, where in the end, Bo Nickal definitely started to run away with it a little bit. I think that's the part that I would say was much better. But Bo Nickal, he does his thing, stays undefeated. Right now, he's definitely showing that he belongs with the best of the best middleweights. Now, of course, as he goes up the rankings, though, fights will get a lot tougher. He's going to have to fight a little bit differently. He's going to run into a lot more wrestlers. So a lot of things are definitely going to change, I know a lot of people expect to see Bo Nickal just go in there and knock people out or choke them out in the first round. It's just not that easy, guys. You got to remember the other guy on the other side is also a professional fighter. He's had professional fights. He's probably knocked out some people. He's probably choked some people out as well. So it's not that simple. And I do wonder what a Bo Nickal Khamzat Chimaev fight would look like because they're both wrestlers at the core. They can both strike. I wonder what that looks like. I really hope the UFC lets us find out what that looks like very soon because I think we're all interested. Next up, we got to talk about Charles Oliviera and Michael Chandler. Man, what a thriller for a co-main event. The more you watch this fight, the more you realize why it was the co-main event because this fight was off the chain for real. Charles came out, he controlled the fight from the get-go, from the first round, I would say all the way to the fifth round, really. By the way, for the way that it was going, I honestly thought in the first or the second round, Michael Chandler would get choked out. Or he would get TKO'd with some punches in the stand-up game by the fence because Charles just had his number the whole time, But I was definitely wrong, and I was shocked because Michael Chandler really hung in there. He did his thing. He did what he had to do to, survive the fight. Charles had a few chances to choke him out, but ultimately he didn't get the job done. Michael Chandler, he started to take a lot of damage, and he really started to come out, which is who he is. Once he gets into trouble and he gets hurt, he just starts throwing for the fences. And let me tell you, if one of those catches you, it could put you out. But at the same time, it puts him in quite a lot of danger. Outside of winning the stand-up game for Charles, he also controlled the entire ground game, like I said, through the first 4 rounds especially. I have to tip my hat off to this guy, man. He's so good. And what's crazy about Charles Oliveira is that he's getting better. Which I don't really know how to fully explain. But the guy is not only good, but he's getting better and better as time progresses. It almost seems like he's a lot calmer. He has so much poise in the octagon now. He's so much more confident in himself, and just able to take a lot more punishment as far as the punches coming in his way nowadays. He doesn't just drop to the ground. He may blink a couple times and he's right back in the fight, and it's very quick. I have to give it to him, man. And Michael Chandler, Iron is the perfect nickname for that guy because he's tough as nails, man. He's as tough as they come. He takes a lot of damage and he tries to hurt you back. It didn't work out for him today. Now, one thing that I think was wrong with Charles, I definitely think, I'm going to skip over to the 5th round here. In the 5th round, something was definitely wrong with Charles Oliveira. At the end of the 4th round, he was on the ground with Michael and he had his back. He did nothing the last 20 seconds of that round. He just coasted until the end, almost like he was conserving energy for the 5th round. Now, in the 5th round, he comes out, almost looks like he's doing a 5-second prayer. I'm not exactly sure why Michael Chandler even waited for him in that situation, but he just did not look like himself. He looked tired. Maybe he was fatigued or something. Something was going on, or his eye was bothering him. Something was going on. I'm not exactly sure what that it was. But all of a sudden, you see Chandler just start throwing bombs, and they start landing. He ends up getting Charles on the ground. And at this point, Charles is taking a lot of damage. It almost looks like he's going to be TKO'd by Michael. And I'm like, whoa, what a comeback if this actually happens. But that's not what ultimately ends up happening. Michael Chandler, like I said, he just came out throwing bombs. And they were actually landing. A lot of them were landing. But Charles, man, like I said, man, how poised he is made a big difference in this one. He almost made it look like that was not going to phase him no matter what happened in this situation. He gets back up on his feet, controls the fight again on his feet, takes Chandler to the ground, and runs the timeout. Now, before he ran the timeout, Michael Chandler really showed some heart right here because he stands up with Oliveira on his back twice and slams his back on the ground just to try to get Oliveira off of him, but it did not work. But look, man, what a great fight. This one was just a thriller. What a great fight to make your co-main event. Now, Michael Chandler did call out Conor McGregor. He did, call out some other folks in the division. Obviously, he can't call out the champ right now, but Charles Oliveira is definitely right back in that conversation, and he should definitely get a title shot next once again. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. I know the champ already beat him by choking him out in Abu Dhabi, but you got to give him that fight again, maybe in the US or even in Brazil or whatever it is. Since he went all the way to Abu Dhabi, maybe they can, meet in Brazil. And that would actually be an awesome fight. That would sell out a stadium no matter what happens. So I can't wait to see what's next for Charles. Can't wait to see what's next for Michael Chandler. Great fight. Great fight. Thank you for the show. Now we got to go over to the main event. Man, what a main event. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. This one did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. I honestly thought Jon Jones would get some competition here. But ring rust, I think, definitely took over for Stipe. He just didn't look the same. He just did not look the same. And I don't really know what to attribute that to. And I'm having a hard time knowing what to figure out what's going on. Maybe Stipe was already flirting with retirement before the fight, but during the fight I was like, man, he looks a lot slower. He looks a little sluggish. He's taking a lot of damage, especially in that first round, all the ground and pound that he took. And I'm like, man, maybe this guy is contemplating retirement. And I don't know. I just seen a look in his face and a look in his eyes that he's like, this might be it. This guy's just too good. Every time he tried to do something, he looked nervous, like, oh, that's not a good idea. Maybe I should not step in. Or he looks like he's trying to figure out what Jon Jones can do. But at the same time, he's doing what we call taking pictures. He's just standing there being hesitant. He doesn't want to make a move. If he makes a move, Jon makes him pay for it. Whether it's closing the distance and taking a knee to the body, whether it's those T kicks that started paying crazy dividends for him. John just absolutely controlled the fight. He controlled the distance. Although they are both 6'4", John has much more length. He had a 4-inch reach advantage on Stipe, and that made a huge difference because Stipe could not get inside. Every time he got inside, he got a knee to the body. He had to deal with T-kicks. He had to deal with taking damage and leaving that, danger zone. It was just a lot for him to deal with. And usually heavyweights do not fight this way. A lot of heavyweights fight strictly with power. They want to get to you. They want to put you in danger, knock you out, and end the fight. But usually they're not there being like Jon Jones. Now, don't get me wrong. Jon Jones is not as fast as he was in light heavyweight times. As a heavyweight, he's definitely a lot slower. But versus Stipe, he looked like a light heavyweight moving around. He was fluid. He was fast. Everything was just working, and he just kept throwing so many of those T-kicks, man. And once Stipe started paying attention to those T-kicks, even when Jon faked them, Stipe would jump and react heavily to those, and Jon picked that apart, So after all the hesitancy, after the T-kicks just kept working to the body, the punches started adding up, Stipe just could not figure out Jon, and he was far too slow to really do any damage to Jon. So in the third round, once again, Jon comes out and he's hurting Stipe, picking him apart at a distance. Like I said, that was a whole staple in this entire fight. If you watch the distance control, it was just masterclass distance control. Once again, Stipe starts taking pictures, trying to figure out what Jon is doing. And in the meantime, he's getting elbowed. Question mark kicks potentially could come out of nowhere. And what ends up catching him in the third round? A spinning back kick straight to the liver. And that puts him down. Jon Jones hits him a couple of times, and that ends the fight. So we're not really shocked as to how the fight ended. But I am shocked as to how Stipe fought. But at the same time, I have to cut him some slack, man. This is his first fight in 2 years. That ring rust is serious. Training is not the same thing as just being in the octagon and actually fighting, And then after the fight ended, I was disappointed to hear that Stipe is retiring. But during the fight and the way that he looked and how he got outclassed, I was like, man, maybe this is on the back of his mind. And it just happened to be that I was right. I don't even know what made me think of that in the moment, but no questions asked. This was pure domination by Jon Jones. And what's crazy is this is the type of fight that we wanted to see Jon Jones end up in with Ciryl Gane. The way he fought today is really more of a Ciryl Gane type of fight. But Ciryl Gane got a little too aggressive in that fight against Jon and ended up getting choked out in the first round. So we didn't get a chance to see a fight like this with Ciryl Gane. But I think a fight like this with Ciryl Gane would have been perfect. But now that Jon has announced that he's not retiring, he's going to go to the negotiation table with the UFC. Hopefully we get to see Tom Aspinall. But if I'm being honest, man, I want to see a cross-promotion fight between Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou. It has to happen. We can't keep dodging this fight. Everybody wants this fight to happen. The UFC has to find a way to work with the PFL. I don't care if it's a neutral site, an Abu Dhabi, Fight Island, whatever. Make this fight happen. We all want to see Jon Jones, Francis Ngannou. We gotta see, especially with how much Francis Ngannou has developed over time. We have to see it, man. Give us this treat, please. UFC, PFL, figure this out. Whatever that has to be done, make it happen. I promise you will put on a fight of a lifetime for both guys in such career-defining moments and legacy-defining moments for the PFL and the UFC. So this was definitely a great fight card at Madison Square Garden. Man, I'm thankful we was able to have something like this, but it is farewell to Stipe. He will definitely be a Hall of Famer. I really wish we could have seen him have a couple more fights before he walked away from the fight game, but we understand. We respect his decision. Thank you for such a great career, Stipe. More importantly, thank you very much, guys, for watching, and peace out, y'all. Thank you very much for your time today, guys. Definitely like and subscribe, and we will have much more coming for you. Have a good one.